And Debbie, take it away.
Think
And we
you're on
see you
mute.
just fine.
You're on mute, Debbie.
We can't hear you, Debbie.
Sorry about that.
One more time.
Okay.
We got you.
Okay, good. So Suzanne, sorry, I think you've seen this a few times, but today I'm going to be talking about design for non-designers. So even if you might hire a graphic designer like me to do, your brochures or whatever, you're still always in communication with people, and you are out there and you're doing emails and Facebook posts and social media things and PowerPoint presentations, things like that. So you want to make sure that you look as professional as you are, and that you don't have typos and you don't have grammatical errors, and you look tech savvy and you look smarter. And there's a few things in here that I'm going to help you try to help you look younger. So the first thing is that you only need one space after a period. And I know that sometimes this was drilled in your head that you have to have two spaces after a period, but you only need one now. And this will help make you look younger, because it's generally the older people that put two spaces after a period. But this came about back from the old typewriter days when fonts were monospace. So an M took up as much space as an L. So your eye kind of needed two spaces after a period to distinguish the end of a sentence and the beginning of a new one. But now, in the last, 50 years or something with computers, letters are proportional. So your eye does not need two spaces after a period. Not a great idea, and good thing to change it. And one really kind of weird thing, there's a TV show called Elsbeth, kind of this quirky show, and there was a murder that took place, and Elspeth found the person who did it because of the two spaces after a period. So a young woman was found dead. There was a suicide note written from her, texted to someone, and Elspeth saw it and she said, she didn't write this. She's a young woman. There was two spaces after a period. Someone else older had murdered her. It wasn't a suicide. So that was a crazy little thing that I thought was really funny when I saw that. The second thing is all caps. And you guys all know all caps means you're shouting. Not a great idea to do it. Again, it came from the typewriter days when there wasn't very many ways to emphasize text except for all caps and the dreaded underline, which I will get to. But now there's so many better ways to emphasize things. So you can make it bold, and a lot of fonts come with different thicknesses and bolds, and you can make it bigger and you can make it in color. So much, or do it in italic. So much better ways to do things in all caps. Especially you don't want to do all caps for large blocks of text. So maybe in a headline where you have a couple words, that's fine, or one word somewhere to emphasize it, but not a great idea to do all caps. And underlining, this is one of my pet peeves. I hate underlining. It just looks horrible. It just always looks horrible. And some people want to emphasize from it, but again, from the typewriter days when it was the one way to emphasize things. So all the other better ways to emphasize except for underlining. And now it should really only be used when you indicate a hyperlink. If you send a PDF to someone and something is underlined, they may be clicking on it, think that that links to something else. So not a great idea. Only do it when it indicates hyperlink. So exclamation points, one of my pet peeves. You only need one. You really don't need all these many exclamation points, because the person reading it doesn't know the difference in your excitement level between 1 and 5 and 100. So if you're doing, and I'm talking professional here, so if you want to send a text and have 100 exclamation points to your buddy, that's fine. But in a professional writing, you really only need one. And here's some information about spacing. So a tab kind of makes you look old too, because it's kind of old fashioned. This is not, this can, some people still really like to do tabs. Some industry, I heard the law industry, they like using tabs. So if it fits your industry, by all means doing it. This is not like illegal or something like that. Books are always going to have a tab because they don't put extra space after periods or the book would be twice as long. But in general, it's just a better idea to separate paragraphs with some space, and it helps kind of lighten up the space, make it not so overwhelming, add some white space. So better idea of that. And you can see that there are much better ways to break up text. So the one on the left, there's a lot of text. You're looking at it, you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to read that. It's too overwhelming. So breaking it up with bullet points, always a great idea if you can do that. It does take a little bit of thinking because this one, you have to think about how to kind of rewrite it. So some tips for using bullets, you always want to have parallel phrasing. So in this instance, they started with verbs, some action words. So that's a great idea. Bolded it, colored bullets is a good idea. Kind of the same space, the same, amount of text in each bullet. And then punctuation, you always want to make sure that it's the correct punctuation within this set of bullets. And if you have a longer document and more sets of bullets, you want to make sure it's the same for all of them. So whether you're using no punctuation or a comma or a semicolon or a period, whatever you're using, make it consistent within each bullet, and then in the whole document, make it consistent with that too. So here's just some tips on layout. So this was a before and after. A client hired me to do Facebook posts every month. And the one on the left, it's just, there's so much text in there. Oh my God, you don't know where to look. The colors are kind of bland. It does have a headlight that you might notice, but you're not going to read white text on a peach background. Horrible. You're not going to read that. So especially on social media, people are scrolling through and they're only going to stop where they draw, where something is attention grabbing. So we changed the layout. Every month it was very consistent, had the same look. I changed the colors. I changed cute cat and dog pictures. And if you know me, I'm going to want to put a dog picture in everything. But Facebook only wants 15 or 20% text in the graphic of a Facebook. So you want to put all the text, type that in and then just have mostly pictures in the graphic. And the front desk people of this vet clinic said they knew when a new ad came out every month because their phone started ringing. So it does make, take a little bit of time when you're doing posts. Think about it. Think about what grabs your attention as you're scrolling through and kind of maybe mirror that. But, you're spending a lot of time and money doing this stuff. You want to make sure that more eyes on it, the better, and that you get some action and some traction on these things that you're doing. Fonts, I'm kind of a font geek. I can talk about fonts all day, but they convey a lot of emotions and really just set the tone for whatever it is you're doing. So there's just a lot of variables on there and what to use. But a big one is your audience and who your target market is. If you are designing some flyer for an older population, you want to make sure that the fonts are clean and simple and big and bold and that they can read it, because they're going to tell you if they can't read it. I swear, if you got a business card and it's too small, people are going to complain about it. So make sure that the font matches the who your target market is. You also don't want to have a lot of white text on a dark background. That's just hard to read, especially if it's a large block of information. But if the audience is kids, definitely go crazy. Have whimsical font, put in color, have it bright and bold and stuff like that. But just think about who the audience is and make sure that they can read it. So you guys probably know a lot about fonts already. Serif fonts are the ones with the little feet, and those are your classic fonts. Always books are in serif fonts generally because it's really easy to read. The little feet kind of take your eye from letter to letter and word to word. So sans serif are very modern. A lot of people use sans serif. It's kind of a good mix for maybe using sans serif for bigger, bolder headlines and serif for larger blocks of text. Slab serif is kind of the quirkier, bolder things. Might be good again for headlines. Kind of all the ones at the bottom are all the other, there's so many other fonts now, right? So there's the script fonts and the handwritten, and those are great. I use those a lot. They're casual, they're personal. They're great for not large blocks of text. Some of them are easier to read than others. I think they're really good for headlines or subheads or some call out things. Probably not for large blocks of text, but I use them all the time. And I think they're great, but just make sure that they're readable. And maybe print out things too if you're doing something. Print it out and make sure you can see what it is. And just because you have 100 fonts doesn't mean you should use them all at the same time. So this is an example of what not to do. It's horrible. There's a ton of fonts. There's so much. I don't even know what's emphasized. I think the thing that's emphasized the most is probably bring the whole family, and duh, it's a fireworks show. I'm going to bring the whole family. You don't need to tell me that. So use 1 or 2 fonts at the most. Use different sizes and boldness and colors to emphasize things. So I'm going to show you at the end how I rework this so it looks better and kind of makes more sense so the person wants to read it. So in general, just use fonts that make sense for what it is you're doing and for your presentation. So Big Al's not going to want to use a frilly font, and the one on the right with all the scripty fonts, those should only be used for really formal invitation. They're really hard to read, and that third line there says tarts and drinks, and you might think it says farts and drinks. So you want to make sure that your font is readable and what you want it to be. Now, the one at the bottom right, oh my gosh, it's wrong in so many ways. So for one thing, it uses Comic Sans, which was that font. I think it came about in 1984. So it was that one fun font. And there was like, oh, cool, a little, something that's a little bit more casual. And everybody was using it. But if you're still using it, it's going to make you look old because there's so many better fonts to use out there. So if you're using Comic Sans, don't use it. And then there's so many emphasis things in here. So you've got the dreaded underline and bold and italics, and then you've got just italic, and then you've got just underline, and then you've got all caps and bold, and oh my God. So stick to one method of highlighting your text and don't go crazy like this and get rid of the Comic Sans. So visual hierarchy is kind of a science in itself, but I won't go too much into it. But in general, just know that, there's ways that your eyes read things. And of course, you're going to read the big bold thing first, and then you're going to go underneath it and say, okay, I'm going to read this. And then down in the corner, you'll probably read that. And you maybe will read the small print, but maybe not. So if you're doing something, you want to emphasize what is important. So the title and what it, who your audience is for, and maybe the date. Maybe you're doing some event and somebody's kind of scrolling through and they're kind of interested and they see, oh no, I don't even have that date free. So they maybe keep rolling, but just kind of emphasize what should be emphasized so your reader can decide if they're going to read further, or maybe go to a website for more information, or skip by it because they don't have an interest in it. Just a little bit on color and placement of text. So it's hard to read black text on a darker background. So I changed it to white. I centered it. And one thing that I do that I don't think a lot of people think about, but I break the sentences where it makes sense. So you wouldn't do this in a big block of text, but on a smaller thing like this, I broke it so it's more readable so that my brain kind of understands what you're doing it. Because the first one says, come to the She Leads Purse project kickoff. If I've never heard of She or the Purse project, I might say, what the heck is a Leads Purse? I don't even know what you're talking about, and not paying any attention. But instead it says, come to the She Leads Purse project. So my brain kind of understands a little bit more what you're talking about here. So if you can break up the text like that, always a good idea. White space is good. A lot of people want to use every square inch of everything, but if you have a document like the one on the left with all this text, you're gonna probably say, oh my God, I can't even read this. It's way too overwhelming. So if you've got the space for it, maybe you've got 2 or 3 pages, maybe you could cut some space, but add some white space. So in the one on the right, there's more space around the margins, more space in between the headline and the subhead, more space around the picture, in between the columns, in between the paragraphs. And I probably would have gone and even added, I'd have made the paragraphs shorter, split up the paragraphs, and put some subheads in there too. So if somebody's kind of scanning through, subheads are always a good idea to grasp the information. And white space really draws your eye in, doesn't it? It just kind of makes it mysterious. You're kind of thinking, okay, what is this all about? What is it? So you don't have to fill up all the space all the time. And white space doesn't really have to be white. It can kind of be an area, and you don't have to be in your face like this. The one on it's so big and bold, and it doesn't really mask, this calm picture of somebody getting a massage. It just doesn't match to have this big and bold. So you can have subtle text, subtle text, small text like that on the right picture really draws your eye in, I think, a lot more than this big bold one that kind of drives you crazy. So this is the before and after they did for the fireworks show. So I started with a better background that's just more colorful and bright, but it still had enough room to put some text on. I used one font, different sizes, different colors, and I emphasized the text and put in the text that should be in here for something like an event that people are going to be going to. I put in the day and the date and the year, because if I thought that August 9th was a Saturday and I missed the show, I'd be bummed. So always put in the day and the date and the year, because things are floating around websites. This might have been from a couple of years ago. So, and I put the time instead of sundown, just because, you don't even know what time sundown is. And I put in the whole address, the date, the street address, and the city and the state and the zip code, because I've seen event flyers and they just list the street address. I mean, Denver's a big metropolitan area. There could be a lot of Lincoln Street is in Denver and in Parker. So I always want to make sure it's a complete address. I put in that it's a 60-inch smart TV because I thought that sounded better. I put information on where to go to get the raffle tickets. I got rid of some of the information that I didn't think needed to be there. So just kind of laid it out better. And just a couple tips too. If you're doing something, you know how when you're working on something, you don't see the glaring errors. So you might just want to have somebody proofread it for you, because I have totally been guilty of putting in the wrong day and date. I put Thursday, August 9th. So always check that calendar, because I've been totally guilty of this many times. And if you're doing something that's really big, you may be having some event, some retreat or something where people are going to be spending a lot of money. You might just want to hire a professional designer like me, because it's going to pay for itself if you get one more person to sign up for whatever you're doing. And it just might look better and be more eye-catching and get them intrigued on what it is you were trying to sell. But if you ever want me to critique something or proof it for you, happy to do that at no cost. And thank you guys. Hopefully you learned a little bit today on what to do, what not to do, and the dreaded 2 spaces after period. Oh, one thing I do with that, I get a lot of, if I'm doing a newsletter or something, and I get somebody's Word doc, I'll do a quick search and replace, 1 space for 2, and then you're done. So that works really easy.